I wanted to go through the setup of the lab. This is normally a lab that takes us a little less than a week in class. So of course, since we're not in class and we're not able to test people in the school, you guys are going to have to be creative and test those that you live with. So I'm hoping that you collectively in your group will have enough people to go through and use as your sample for this study. So I want to project the actual lab, and when I'm done with this, you guys will make a copy of the lab and share it to a spreadsheet so that everybody in your group has one copy that you're all working from. So you guys can see my screen, yes? Awesome. So this is essentially a lab that is going to fit in with what we've been talking about with our study of the brain. So if you guys remember, there's kind of 3 steps of thought. There's 3 steps of every stimulus response pairing of the nervous system. So the first step is always the input. We also call that the sensory. Second step is called integration. So that typically will go to the brain, and the brain will figure out how to process that incoming sensory and then decide what the output is going to be. So the third stage is output. Of course, when you have that through those 3 stages, but integration does not happen in the brain, where it just goes sensory, integration, and then output, skipping the brain, we call that a reflex arc. So what you guys are going to be doing is you guys are going to essentially quantify that progression of input, integration, output. And the way that we're going to do this is we're going to test reaction time. So if you think about it, if somebody would blow an air horn sitting right next to you, the sensory would be your auditory nerve picking up on that sound. The integration would probably go to your temporal lobe and then maybe your frontal lobe to make a decision about what to do. And then the output maybe would be that you would jump or maybe punch the person that just blew that air horn in your ear. Essentially, what you guys are going to be doing is quantifying how long does it take from that initial input to the output of what the response is going to be. So to quantify that, there's a couple different ways that you can go about that. So I shared 2 of these ways with the class yesterday, and this is the real reason I wanted to meet with you guys to kind of review that. So the deal is when you are testing reaction time, you have to kind of figure out what it is that you're going to be testing. So we're testing the effect of something on reaction time. So I want to, okay. So for this lab, I'm going to have you guys on your own read down through the background information that talks about the processing of the sensory, the incoming neurons, interneurons, and what reaction time is measured as. So this is what we went over yesterday. You're going to be working on one document with your entire group, and you will plan, pick a question, develop a hypothesis, and then you will test that hypothesis on the people that you live with. Obviously, we have to be a little creative because you're not in school right now. So the deal is there are 2 different methods you guys can use to test reaction time. So the first one is with a meter stick. So what you essentially would do is you would have the meter stick hovering in front of the person, and the person would put their hand around the meter stick without touching it at the very bottom of the meter stick, and you would be holding the top of the meter stick. And what you would do is whenever you would say the stimulus, you at that exact same moment, whether that stimulus is auditory, whether it's a light signal, at that exact same moment you would drop the meter stick. And essentially the person who you're testing the reaction time would try to catch the meter stick as quick as possible after that stimulus. So therefore, the longer the distance traveled in the meter stick, the slower the reaction time. Shorter distance would mean a faster reaction time. Now, a lot of people, I realize, probably don't have meter sticks at their house. I certainly don't. But what most people do have is some sort of mop or broom. So we're going to get real creative with this, gentlemen. So what I encourage you to do is, I'm pretty sure everybody has a mop or a broom or some sort of cleaning object that's kind of long enough that you could demonstrate this. And then most people somewhere in their house have a tape measure, whether it be in inches and you have to do the metric conversion, or whether or not your tape measure has centimeters as well. So what I would encourage you to do is to take said mop or broom, and you're going to essentially measure the distance from the beginning of the broom to the top of the broom If you want to save yourself time, you can put little gradations, maybe with a pencil or a marker that would come off of the broom eventually. And you're going to use this as your meter stick. So essentially the way that this would work is if I was the subject that you're testing, I would probably have my eyes closed, and you as the experimenter would be holding the broom up here and ready to drop it. You would have the person hold the broom at the exact same location. So maybe make a start mark on the broom. And again, I'm not holding it, my hands are just kind of around it. And then let's say my eyes are closed and you decide to blare an air horn as the stimulus. Well, as soon as I would technically hear the air horn, and as soon as you blew it, you would drop the broom, and then the subject would catch it. And then you as the experimenter measure the distance from where they first were hovering around the broom to where they were able to catch it. And that distance is going to be reaction time. Can you guys give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? Brennan, you with me? Cool. So that is one way that you can do reaction time. The second one is this website. So can you guys see this loading right now? Okay. So this website is specifically meant for like different types of testing. The one that I directed you to was the reaction time test. So if you click on the screen anywhere, anytime that the screen goes from red to green, the green color is your stimulus. So I clicked and it took me 374 milliseconds to click when I saw that green coloration. You can see down here it has the average, which is 374 because I've only done it once. And you can see you will do this 5 times and it averages those 5 times together. This would act, so these 5 times would act as one trial, one test on a subject. So essentially you would just have them keep going, and every time that you would click, it averages those times together. Okay, can you give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? Fantastic. So those are your 2 ways of quantifying reaction time. The next thing that you guys have to do as a group is basically brainstorm experimental questions. We are not just testing reaction time. We're doing a controlled experiment where we will have a normal control group with people just trying to measure reaction time normally. But then the other group, you're going to give a variable. So the variable can be things like, people have done these in the past, like how does age affect reaction time? How does sight versus auditory stimuli affect reaction time? So in other words, can you react quicker if you hear something or if you see something? How does white noise affect reaction time? How does temperature? So I've had people in the past successfully like dip the person's hand in cold water versus room temperature water versus hot water, and then try to have them catch the meter stick and see whether or not it affected their muscles and the reaction time. I've had people play around with lights. People played around with strobe lights before. How does multitasking affect reaction time? This one's really interesting because you can have the person text on one hand and then try to do the click reaction time test on the other. How does exercise affect reaction time? So you can have them do jumping jacks before or after the test. So basically what we did as a class yesterday is they had a little bit of time to start basically listing on their group document potential examples of experiments. Please understand, you don't have to do any of these. In fact, I would love for you guys to come up with a unique idea that makes sense to you. So what we need to do by today, and what we're going to do in class today, is basically you guys have to pick a question and get it approved by me. You have to phrase that question as an experimental question and then develop it as a hypothesis. In this part, I explained yesterday that normally when we do this in school, I have you guys go out into the study halls, you go out into the halls, you go out into the senior lounge, and you grab as many students as you can to participate in the study. Obviously, I don't want you guys to break any social distancing suggestions, so you're just going to be testing the people in your houses, which is why I have you guys in groups, so that collectively, hopefully within your group, you'll be able to get maybe 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people to test. Okay, so far is this making sense? Okay. The culmination of this is that you guys are going to have several days to do this, and I've tried to coordinate it with this spring break so that you would have 4 days off from school, that you could do 4 days of testing with people that are in your house, because I assume you guys are pretty much going to be in your house. You can collect your data over that break. It should be pretty easy. You can do multiple data tests per day in order to get a larger sample size to make sure that your data is accurate. And then collectively, you guys in your group are going to be doing a presentation using Google Slides that you guys will basically present the findings of your experiment. So all of the slide content requirements are on this document. And if you keep scrolling down, you can see there's also the grading rubric for this project. So everything is kind of in this one-stop shop document. What I need you gentlemen to do right now is, can I have Aaron or Brennan, can one of you just raise your hand? Can you make a copy of this reaction time document? Thank you, Brennan. And then can you, on the daily class planner, you can see that I'm asking you to share it with your group members and with me. So Brennan, if you can share it with Aaron and myself. And then Brennan, if you can link it to this spreadsheet that's on the daily class planner that has all of the different documents on it to make sure that's shareable, okay? And when we meet today in class, I'll let you know if I've had contact with Kariana, if she's gonna join your group or not. And if not, I might break you two up and put you in two different groups. Does that sound like a plan? Awesome. Any questions for me? Okay, well, I will see you third period, gentlemen. Thank you.